Kodai Senga was brilliant once again. The Mets bullpen held up, and Brett Baty won a series for the Mets with one big swing of the bat.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. You can also find some of my written work over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, coming into this series against the Pirates, all eyes were on Paul Skeens. He was set to start the first game of this series, and he is one of the biggest names in the sport right now. We didn't talk much about Mitch Keller, because Keller came in with an ERA over 4, a guy that for the large portion of his career has been more of a middle-of-the-rotation starter than a front-end guy, although for the Pirates at times, he has been the leader of that staff. He's the veteran in the room. He does have the ability to look really good in a given start, and we saw that on Tuesday. Mitch Keller, probably better than Paul Skeens was in this series. He gave up 1 run in the first inning as Juan Soto got a base hit, stole second base, and was scoring a double by Brandon Nimmo. And then from that point in the first inning, all the way through the 6th inning, Mitch Keller did not have a single runner touch second base. He just pretty much carved through the Mets lineup across a large portion of this game. He issued a walk to Soto, gave up a base hit to Vientos, a base hit to Baty, but none of those runners came in the same inning. So all guys that touch first base, that's it. The Mets just did not threaten to score at all. And so Kodai Senga had the pressure of trying to have that 1 run in the first inning hold up throughout the entire game. And for the most part, he did that under great pressure every single inning on the opposite end of the spectrum from Keller. Senga was in trouble. From the second inning on, every single inning, there was a runner in scoring position that he had to navigate. And each time Kodai Senga did what we've talked about in this show, a real ace has the ability to pitch themselves into and out of trouble, where they get in that situation where there's runners in scoring position, nobody out, and they strike out all 3 batters. And Senga did that. But to go through inning by inning, second inning, he gives up a 1-out triple. He gets Alex Canario to pop up. Brett Baty makes a great catch on that play. Should not be forgotten. Infield drawn in with a runner at third base and 1 out, and Baty gets a great jump on it, runs back into the outfield, fields it in shallow center field. Really good play by Baty, who I thought looked great at second base in this one today. And then after that pop out, he picks up a strikeout to strand the runner at third base to get through that second inning. Third inning, gives up a base hit with 1 out. Then there's a double that was a hot shot to Mark Vientos at third base that took a weird hop, I guess. Vientos is kind of diving to his right, trying to field a backhand, and the ball just basically hits him on the chest. He misses it with the glove, hits him square in the chest, bounces away. It definitely should have been a hit. I don't know if it necessarily should have been a double, but it was a double, and that put runners at second and third, and Senga had to pitch in that spot. He gets a strikeout of IKF, then a ground out to Vientos to end the threat. So really tough situation, finds his way through it. 4th inning, this is where there was the runners on with nobody out. He had a leadoff walk, then a base hit, put runners at first and third. And at one point, I believe that runner at first did steal second base. Regardless, Kodai Senga buckled down and struck out the next 3 batters and got out of that inning, which was remarkable. All of those strikeouts, really, actually, if you go back to the second inning on, each of those strikeouts came on the Ghost Fork. I believe 6 of his 7 strikeouts in the game came on the Ghost Fork. There was one where he struck out hitter in the first inning on a fastball. But everything was predicated on the Ghost Fork. I want to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment, as I'll spend some more time on Kodai Senga and how he did it. But going through what he did, 5th inning, issues a 1-out walk, wild pitch, puts a runner in scoring position, gets a ground out, then a fly out, gets out of the jam. Finally, in the 6th inning, he gets the first 2 guys out, then gives up a base hit. Carlos Mendoza goes out there to talk with Kodai Senga. He's at 99 pitches and basically asked him, do you still want to end this game? And Senga told him flat out, I'm good to go. And so it was one of those situations where, all right, you get one more batter to try to make it through 6. And it was another hard hit ground ball to Mark Vientos that took some kind of crazy hop. It was a hard hit ground ball that literally went through Mark Vientos' gloves. It completely went through the pocket of his glove. They got to get him another strap on that glove or something to make sure that doesn't happen. But it was just a weird hop. And I did look back, and again, I'm going to talk about Senga start a little bit more in the next segment, but I was looking at the balls put in play on Ghost Forks, and no surprise, the 2 ground balls that took the wicked hops on Vientos both came on the Ghost Fork. So something about the way that ball is spinning in there and guys hitting it hard on the ground resulted in some weird ground balls that, put him in a tough spot, put Vientos in a tough spot. And, Senga was fortunate that that inning in the 6th did not turn into something a lot worse, because Reed Garrett comes on and walks 2 batters. So he walked in an inherited run that, of course, gets attributed to Senga, but then he got an out. And so basically the situation, Garrett able to get the big out, to strand a bunch of runners, keep the Mets in the game with things tied at a score of 1-1. For Senga, the book was closed at 5 2/3 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and gave up that 1 earned run. And in a start where he gave up only 1 run, his ERA went up from 1.16 to 1.22. Just unbelievable stuff from Senga. Again, going to spend a whole segment on him next coming up here. But how this game finished, it all came down to Brett Baty. Mitch Keller put the Mets down in order in the 6th. Max Kranick came on, pitched a 1-2-3 7th. Keller gets the first 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th inning. And then here comes Brett Baty, who gets into a 1-1 count, sees a changeup low and away, stays back on it, hits the ball where it's pitched, drives it 104.5 miles per hour off of the batter, 104.4 miles per hour. Doesn't matter which percentage it is. It was a very well-struck line drive that just kept carrying and carrying and carrying, and it ends up hitting off that railing above the wall in left field for a home run. Unbelievable that Brett Baty has now homered, 4 times in 5 starts since coming back, and 5 times in his last 7 games, going back to the Zach Wheeler home run that he hit prior to his demotion. It is absolutely absurd how hot Brett Baty is and how he looks like a completely changed hitter with the amount of confidence he's carrying into each at-bat. He's taking pitches with more conviction. When he is swinging, he is looking to drive the baseball. You're seeing less of those lazy rolled over ground balls. He got 2 hits in this game, and the home run wins it for the Mets. Ryan Stanek pitched a scoreless 8th, gave a base hit, struck out 2. Edwin Diaz closed the door in the 9th, but it did get a little bit shaky. He issued a 1-out walk to Adam Frazier, who stole second base. Then Francisco Lindor made a throwing error to put runners on the corners with 1 out. IKF ends up stealing second base, so there's 2 runners in scoring position with 1 out. But Diaz gets a big strikeout, and then Luis Angel Acuna makes a great play to end the game, a load line drive that gets to him on 1 hop, but he's able to get there quickly, field it cleanly, and make the play for the Mets to win the game by a score of 2-1. They win yet another series, and they continue their dominance at home, 17-4 to start the season at Citi Field, with another opportunity to sweep a series on Wednesday. Going to be interesting to see if they can capitalize on that. But what I want to do throughout the rest of the show is talk about the 2 stars of this game. First, Kodai Senga, then Brett Baty. We'll get to all of it in just a minute. First, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, deliver fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. So let's talk about what Kodai Senga did in this game. It is throw a lot of ghost forks. 102 pitches, 41 of them were ghost forks. Here's the breakdown. He got 29 swings on 41 ghost forks. I'm laughing because very few teams will swing that frequently on the ghost fork. Typically, the strategy going in is try to identify it, anything low, anything that starts, belt high, especially in a 2-strike count. You can expect that it might be that ghost fork that's going to fall off the table. And so teams will take that pitch when they can to not put themselves in a bad position where Senga is picking up big strikeouts on the ghost fork every time, but the Pirates are just swinging away on it. And so 29 swings on 41 ghost forks, 11 whiffs, 11 foul balls. So more than half already are just not put in play. 7 balls were put in play, and then there's 12 others that were obviously taken for balls. You look at the balls put in play on the ghost fork, 2 pop-outs, the 2 wicked ground balls to Mark Vientos, a fly out on a 3-2 count against Brian Reynolds in the 5th inning. This is where, again, runner in scoring position, tough spot for Senga. And he just basically threw a ghost fork in a count where everybody knew it was coming. Brian Reynolds did the best he could to time it up, put a good swing on it, and it resulted in a flyout. Because the reality of that ghost fork is nobody can square it up. That's what makes it such a great pitch. The other ball put in play was a fly ball that was squared up as well as it can be by Cabrian Hayes, and it fell short. It was on the warning track, and Tyrone Taylor made a great catch to run it down in the 6th inning. Kodai Senga, when he is on with that ghost fork, he is so tough because, again, it's that really tough strikeout pitch where you're trying to protect, and it starts in the zone. It starts over the plate. It looks so good, and people swing and chase, and that's where he's so dangerous. And then he still has the ability, even in a full count, to throw that pitch for a strike in the zone when he's on. When he's not on with the ghost fork, sometimes he just can't find the zone with it. But when he's on like he was tonight with the ghost fork and he can throw it in the zone, well, then he just throws it, and good luck trying to square it up. Going into this start tonight, batters are hitting .087 on the ghost fork. Now, a couple guys got hits, actually doubles on it, doubles that barely left the infield, but doubles nonetheless. So that batting average is going to go up. The slugging percentage, I guess, it's going to go up. But still, it's going to be minuscule numbers, and it's going to be probably something close to what it was back in 2023, where batters hit 110 against his ghost fork, and they slugged 147. He only gave up 1 home run on the pitch in 2023, only 1 home run on his ghost fork in his entire big league career at this point. And now you're looking at what Kodai Senga has done in a Mets uniform across now, a full season in 2023, 1 start in 2024 in the regular season, and then, of course, now 8 starts this year. He has pitched to a 2.63 ERA in his first 216 innings in a Mets uniform. And he also now has 16 consecutive starts going back to 2023, where he has given up 2 earned runs or less in every single regular season start. You look at Mets history, who has the best ERA in franchise history? There's a couple guys I'm sure you're trying to think through your head and guess on. Is it Seaver? Is it DeGrom? Maybe it's Gooden. It is Jacob DeGrom at a 2.52 ERA in a Mets uniform. Seaver just behind at 2.57. Again, Kodai Senga 2.63. When it comes to production on the mound, he is in an inner circle of Mets pitchers. There are a few guys that have been this effective at run prevention. And now you also look at his numbers this season. He's made 8 starts. He's leading the Mets rotation with a 1.22 ERA, leads the Mets rotation with a 1.20 whip, leads the Mets rotation with a 2.17 batting average against, and is tied with David Peterson for the team lead in innings pitched at 44 1/3. I've had a couple of our Locked On Mets insiders and maybe some comments on social media about this as well this season, where I've heard from Mets fans who are critical of Kodai Senga because of how the Mets have to navigate their rotation and sort of set everything up with Senga in mind, where he's the guy that needs the extra day's rest. He's never going to pitch on 4 days rest. They're always going to have him on the same schedule, 5 days rest or more. And there's fans that get frustrated by that because you might be a little more old school and just you like the guy that'll throw every 5th day. And I still think there is an extra value in the guys that'll go out there and take the ball every 5th day and be dominant. The guys that can do what Tarek Skubal did last year, where he completely carried a rotation and really a team into the playoffs with how well he pitched every 5th day. That's an A+ ace, okay? But Kodai Senga, if it's 29 starts instead of 32 and it's a guy that might pitch this year to a low 2s ERA, even better potentially if he keeps this up. A guy who can go out there on a given start, and if things are rolling, he might strike out 12. A guy that can get himself in jams in 4 consecutive innings and find his way out of them in 4 consecutive innings without giving up a run. Kodai Senga is awesome for what he is. And I don't think fans should try to make him anything else. I don't think fans should wonder or worry or question if the Mets need to force him into regular rest and get him out of this mindset or this mold of pitching every 6 days instead of every 5. In the grand scheme of things, if you get 29 sensational Kodai Senga starts where he is comfortable and he is at his best and he is in a rhythm, that's as good as you can ask for. And let's also remember, Kodai Senga is the 3rd highest paid pitcher in this rotation right now. You got Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas, who are both making more money this season than Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga is only getting $15 million per season, a 5-year, $75 million deal. When you look at what pitchers are getting paid and what the investment is on an ace for a given season, where some guys are making north of $35 million, Kodai Senga could nearly pay off this 5-year contract for the Mets if he just stays healthy for this entire season. Giving you what he did in 2023, I know the team wasn't good, but Senga was, top 5 in Cy Young and runner-up in Rookie of the Year and was unbelievable in an all-star season. And if he does that again this year, is an all-star, maybe finishes top 5, if not top 3 in Cy Young, the Mets make the playoffs and he's their ace going into it, I'm serious when I say anything else you get on this contract is gravy. And I would hope that you still get 2 more years of Kodai Senga at this level, in which case this is one of the biggest bargains the Mets have probably ever signed. It's early. There's still a lot of time left on this deal. And this is a guy that last year was injury prone and has dealt with injuries throughout his entire career if you go back to his time in the NPB. But when he is on, he has as good of stuff as anyone in the game of baseball. And for those that are wondering or concerned again about what this means for the Mets in the playoffs, do they still have to go out and get your bell cow ace, whatever you want to describe it as, the guy that's going to go out and be able to start game 1, game 4, and game 7 of the World Series, and the Mets are fortunate enough to get that far? Sure. Senga's not going to be that guy. He's not going to start 3 games in a 7-game series. But the way things line up, he can still start 2 games in the NLDS, because the NLDS is played over 7 days, and if the Mets are fortunate enough to win this division, they can still set Senga up to pitch game 1 and game 5 if necessary. And those 7-game series, they take place over 9 days. He'll still get out there for 2 starts. To me, if that is the max capacity for Kodai Senga, where it's 29 regular season starts and 5 playoff starts on a World Series run, if, again, the Mets have that type of a season, I don't care that he's not going to pitch on 4 days rest. I really don't. Because what he's giving you on 5 days rest is elite production and a chance to win every single time. He's awesome. He really is. He is an outstanding pitcher. And for the Mets, getting the value they have out of this contract, it is one of the better signings they've made in recent memory. He has been that special. And you look at this rotation right now, best rotation in baseball, through 8 starts for all of these guys. You got Tyler McGill at a 3.10, Clay Holmes at a 2.74 ERA, Griffin Canning at a 2.36, David Peterson at a 3.05, and Kodai Senga at a 1.22 ERA. It is insane, the production the Mets have gotten through now 8 turns in the rotation. And I'm excited to see how this rotation evolves because they have 2 really good starting pitchers who will come off the IL at some point. They have another decent starting pitcher in Paul Blackburn that's getting close. And they have 2 really good pitching prospects in AAA right now in Nolan McLean and Brandon Sproat. So the starting pitching depth on this team, in my opinion, is at a point where I really don't think the Mets are going to need a starting pitcher at the deadline, if I'm being completely honest, but that is still far, far away. Anyway, to close out the show, I want to talk about Brett Baty. How is he changing things for the Mets this year when it comes to their roster fit? Who should be playing right now? Should Mark Vientos just be a DH? We're going to talk about all of that in just a minute. If you're an everyday listener of the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Brett Baty is suddenly the hottest hitter on the New York Mets since coming back to replace Jesse Winker on the roster. He has played in 6 games. 5 of them starts. 1 game he just came in late as a defensive replacement. Overall, in those 5 games, he is hitting 353 on base. Hasn't drawn a walk, but you don't need to when you're raking, with a slugging percentage of 1.059 because he has hit 4 home runs in 17 at-bats, has 7 RBIs, has his OPS on the season nearing 800 now with this rash of home runs because, again, 5 home runs hit in his last 7 games played. And what's also clearly evident is Brett Baty is a very good infielder. He's definitely much better than Mark Vientos over at third base. And second base is holding his own. He played a very good game at second in this one as the Mets decided to DH Jeff McNeil, have Mark Vientos continue to get his reps at third base, and to put Baty over at second with Acuna. Where was Acuna at then? When did Acuna get into that game? Now that I'm thinking about it, Acuna made that play late. I guess he came in for defense in that 9th inning. Kind of funny how I'm just like registering that right now. But yeah, I'm remembering that final out, and I'm wondering, when did Acuna get in there? Yeah, so he came in that final inning for Vientos, and they slid Baty over to third base. But that flexibility has been awesome for the Mets. That ability to start Jeff McNeil in center field, and then, all right, well, you can move Jeff McNeil to second base and Acuna to third. And, when Baty's in there, he could play third or second if they wanted to. I bet you they could stick Brett Baty in left field in a pinch if they needed to, because I think he's just that level of an athlete. So this roster has taken a shape now where it's almost one of those situations, and you hate to call it that, but Jesse Winker's injury, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. And that seems really grimy to say, because this is not something that is, Winker's fault, because Winker was producing, but he was a DH. And the one time we played the outfield, he got hurt. Your roster has more flexibility, and you have so much invested in a former first-round pick in Brett Baty, who was on his last legs. I mean, when it comes to this organization, he's got 7 lives, it seems, and he's making the most out of his last life or two, because what he is doing right now is changing the perspective of how you're going to kind of construct this roster for potentially the rest of the season and maybe years beyond this. Because when Brett Baty was called up in 2023, about a week into the season, a little bit later than that, and he was brought up to be the guy at third base, and Eduardo Escobar was going to be, a platoon bat at the time. He might have, faced left-handed pitching a platoon with Baty, but then they traded Escobar not too long after that. They really did give the keys to third base to Brett Baty. I remember doing a show at the time where it was, all right, is this finally the Mets answer at third base after not having an answer for years post David Wright. David Wright was in the building tonight, funny enough, but that was 2023. And that was off the heels of an outstanding 2022 season where Brett Baty was the best hitter in that league in AA in Binghamton. Came up to AAA, had a quick cameo, was awesome. Louis Guillorme gets hurt. Brett Baty slides in there, hits a home run in his first at bat in the big leagues, and then he gets hurt. And we never really got to see what Baty was going to be that year because he was in a great rhythm at the time in 2022. Has a good spring training, starts 2023 and is red hot in AAA, comes up, gets the leash for most of the season, and just didn't run away with the job. Had a really bad year. Last year, gets off to a good start, hitting over 300 a couple weeks into the season. I think it was like a hamstring pull, which didn't put him on the IL, but something changed after it, and he struggled for a couple weeks, and then Mark Vientos came up and took his job. This year, Luis Angel Acuna sort of took that job from him. He was getting more playing time in the beginning. Baty was getting more of the work than Acuna. Acuna ate into it. Jeff McNeil, ready to come back. Brett Baty had been playing well, but you know what? For the roster and how things were going to fit together, it made more sense for the Mets to send Baty down and let him play every day and to keep Jose Azocar on the roster and just wait to see when Baty would get an opportunity. And sure enough, Winker goes down. Here's Baty with the opportunity, and it's been unbelievable. And so now you look at where the Mets are at. Brett Baty might be the third baseman of the future after all. And that doesn't mean you're shipping Mark Vientos away. It means Mark Vientos might just be your DH. And you look at what Vientos has done, you say, oh man, the season numbers aren't that great. You compare it to last year, he was so much better. The league's adjusting to him a little bit, and he got off to a slow start. But you look at the last 30 games, Mark Vientos is quietly hitting 284 with a 352 on base and a 477 slug. That's an 829 OPS. He has 5 home runs in a 30-game span. Take 30 games, times it by 5 over 150 game sample. It's like 25 homers and 829 OPS. It's not exactly what you'd like from Vientos. You want him to probably hit some more home runs and be more of a 30 to 40 home run guy. But it's a 30-game sample again where this guy's proven to be a well above average hitter. And over his last 15 games, Vientos is sitting 327, 377 on base, 509 slug. That's an 886 OPS. He's got 3 home runs during that time. So Vientos is starting to swing it. Now the Mets have so many different combinations that they can roll with. It can be Vientos at DH, Baty at third, Acuna at second. If they decide Acuna's just not hitting enough, they can always put Baty at second, keep Vientos at third, and the DH could eventually be Winker. Or it could be McNeil at second, Baty at third, Vientos at DH. They have so many different options they can play with. Acuna, he's hitting 279 on the year. He makes such an impact defensively and on the bases, but he hasn't homered, only has 6 doubles. He's got a 670 OPS. So the Mets might get to a point this year where they decide, Acuna can get on base, can play great defense, but he might be a second half of the game player, and we're going to start the game with a McNeil or a Baty and Vientos and run out that group for a couple at bats and see where you get. And if you can get an early lead, then you sub in Acuna. Carlos Mendoza just has so many options right now. And when Jesse Winker comes back, I really don't know what you do. Because if Baty can sustain this, and I'm not saying he's going to slug over 1,000 for the rest of the season, but if he can start to get to the point where he's getting 2 hits a lot of nights and he's bringing that batting average up and he's taking his walks when they come and he's driving the baseball, Brett Baty might get to the point where he's your third baseman. And Mark Vientos has the type of bat that you got to find a way to get him in the lineup. Again, you never know. It could end up coming down to a point where Baty, Vientos, and Winker by the end of the season prove themselves as the best options. In a playoff lineup, it might have McNeil and Acuna on the bench. But you have options. And then moving forward, you look at this organization, they got a couple third base prospects that are exciting. Jacob Reimer, all of a sudden, really making a name for himself again in Brooklyn. You have Jesus Baez, who's gotten off to a rough start, but he had a really nice year last year. Those are a couple guys that could factor into the third base mix long term. Ronnie Mauricio is on the mend, and we'll see when he gets back and is healthy. But Brett Baty is here right now, and he can hold off all of those guys if he just keeps hitting, because defensively, I really believe in this guy. I don't know if he's going to win a Gold Glove, but he is a fine defensive third baseman, and he's holding his own at second too. So Brett Baty is a revelation right now. We'll see how long it lasts. It is still a short sample size. Things can change. We could be right back where we started in a couple of weeks, and Baty might look lost. But for now, he's looking more confident than he ever has at the big league level, and it shouldn't come as a complete surprise. The struggles came as a complete surprise. The fact that it took him this long came as a surprise because, again, this was a top 30 prospect in baseball, or near consensus top 30 prospect in baseball. He was supposed to be can't miss. He is an athletic, big guy that's strong, that always posted very good exit velocities, where he always was supposed to have this power in the tank, and a guy that improved defensively year over year over year to get to the point where he could be considered an average or an above average defender at the hot corner. This is what he was supposed to be. This is the potential that we always thought he had. Maybe now he's realized it for good. That's the hope for the Mets. Looking at the final game of this series, Baty might be on the bench because Bailey Falter is going to be on the mound for the Pirates. Falter, an ERA over 4 this season, but hey, Mitch Keller just proved on Tuesday night that does not mean anything. I imagine Starling Marte will DH because of the lefty on the mound. Vientos probably at third, Acuna at second, but we will see. And Clay Holmes will be starting on 4 days rest for the first time this year, and that puts the Mets in an interesting spot because their bullpen pretty run down at this point. They got an off day on Thursday to reset, but if Edwin Diaz were to pitch, that'd be 4 times in 5 days. Don't know if the Mets are going to do that. They might not use him. If they don't, is Stanek available? Because for him, it would be 3 times in 4 nights. For Reed Garrett, it would also be 3 times in 4 nights. So we'll see if those guys are options for Carlos Mendoza. If not, might be another one where Huascar Brazaban is your closer. I think they have to get some outs in this game from Genesis Cabrera because he just hasn't pitched in a while and this bullpen's run down. I don't know if Daniel Nunez is going to be available on a day's rest. You would think so, but you just really never know what the situation is with his arm and how the Mets are going to utilize him. Is Max Kranick going to pitch a back-to-back? We'll see. Jose Budo has only had a day, so it's going to be interesting to see the Mets navigate through this one. So ideally, they'll put up a bunch of runs on Bailey Falter, take some of the pressure off, and maybe you can see Clay Holmes, if he can get through 6, pass it off to Genesis Cabrera, who might be sort of stretched a little bit. Maybe they try to get more than 3 outs from Cabrera if it is a lopsided game to try to get through it all. But the Mets have an opportunity. Okay, this is not a game to just mail in. Yes, you won the series, but you have a tough stretch coming up. The Mets, after this, have an off day on Thursday, but then they're going to go cross to the other borough and start a Subway Series with the Yankees over the weekend at Yankee Stadium. Then they got to go to Fenway to play the Red Sox. 2 very tough series on the road in hostile environments. Then you come home, which is nice, but the Dodgers will be there to greet you. Best team in baseball. So 9 games coming up that will be very tough. This is one against a bad team that the Mets hopefully can get and improve to 18-4 on the season at Citi Field. We'll see how it goes. I'll be back with another show tomorrow breaking down whatever happens in that game. And I think we'll probably spend some time either on the minor league side of things or I think we'll probably focus on the minor leagues just because I want to save the Rafi Devers topic that is kind of in the background right now in the shadows for when the Mets are going to face off against the Red Sox next week. But there's a lot to talk about still within this farm system and, of course, with whatever happens to close out this series. So make sure you don't miss out on tomorrow's show. Follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listener, your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that breaks down all of the games across Major League Baseball on a given night with our local experts on each team providing quick analysis to take you through the show. If you want to follow along with Locked On MLB Game Night, you can find it on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.